Okay, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are listening or watching this today. Welcome to the Mind, Body, Spirit Network's High Vibe Tribe Q&A interview. My name is Liz Garcia. I am founder and host of High Vibe Tribe TV, if you're following us on YouTube. And we have a really exceptional guest today. And her name is Eileen McKusick, and she lives in Burlington, Vermont. Have you always been there, Eileen, or are you a transplant?
I'm a transplant, yes. I was born and raised in Connecticut.
Oh!
And we moved to Vermont in 2002, but we lived out in the mountains. So when our kids were little, they grew up in the woods.
What part of Connecticut?
Pomfret, Connecticut, which is, if you're from Massachusetts, right, we're just south of Webster or Sturbridge.
I'm going to stop you right there. My brother lives in Pomfret.
Really?
My family moved to Woodstock after I graduated high school, so I didn't spend much time there, but that's just too funny that you were in Pomfret. All right, we're all connected very, 2 degrees of separation, that's it.
Yep.
All right, so so everyone that's listening, Eileen has an amazing gift and healing modality to share, and I've experienced some of it, not with Eileen, with some other people. And I'm going to introduce Eileen first, and then we'll start with the questions. But it's on the topic of sound healing and sound therapy. And if you've ever had a gong bath or singing bowls or even the little ting at the end of a yoga, at the end of a yoga practice, just the sound is like, whoa. She's got some research behind all of that, and she's going to share what she's come to find. So hold on one second. Let me just read Eileen's bio here. So Eileen Day McKusick, and that's McKusick, for those that are just listening, is an internationally recognized thought leader in the fields of therapeutic sound and the human biofield. She's the originator of biofield tuning, also known as sound balancing, a unique therapeutic method utilizing tuning forks, founder of the Biofield Tuning Institute, and the author of the best-selling Nautilus award-winning book, Tuning the Human Biofield, Healing with Vibrational Sound Therapy. And I was telling Eileen before we started today that I went to YouTube last night and watched one of her videos called Eileen McKusick Explains the Premise of the Biofield Anatomy Hypothesis. That's a mouthful, but let me tell you, it's super fascinating. I'd recommend all of you listeners to go to YouTube and Google that title. You'll get it right away. It's an hour long, almost an hour long, and I thought, I can't watch an hour, but yeah, I could. It was very fascinating, interesting, and Eileen's an excellent presenter and lecturer, so she knows her stuff. So I want to say one other thing too, Eileen. Yesterday we do a monthly High Vibe Tribe video book review where members of the network come in and share a book. And somehow the topic of sound healing came up. And the woman that was on the call with me, she's like, oh my God, I love Eileen's book. Do you have her book? So she has your book. She's got your tuning fork. She's a Reiki practitioner. And she's like, and I'm like, oh yeah, I tried to do an interview with her, but she couldn't make it. So, and then you show up. So yay, it was meant to be. So Eileen, why don't you tell us a little bit more about how you got into this, first of all? I mean, this is not like an everyday, I think I'll start this. How did you get into the whole sound healing realm and research for that matter?
Well, like many people who go into these kinds of things, I was looking for self-healing. I was mentally and emotionally and physically really just a mess as a teenager, as I think, this culture tends to do to young women. And I was very concerned about it and wanted to fix it. And so I just sort of went on the path of health research, health and human potential, science and spirituality. And then I realized that it was a field that I wanted to go into. I didn't want to spend 8 years of college to be a naturopath. So I started with massage therapy. And, just always kept books going and kind of came across the idea of sound healing, bought some tuning forks and started integrating them into my massage therapy practice. And they were so intriguing. They didn't behave the way I thought that they would. And they were just really curious, and they really helped people. You know, people reported that they were sleeping better, that they were having less pain. They started requesting more of the sound. And so this part-time massage practice that I had turned into a part-time sound therapy practice. And for 10 years, it was just kind of a hobby, something I did on the side. I was actually in the restaurant business, and then the specialty business.
So was I.
So that was my main gig. I never really wanted to be a healer. You know, don't even really like the word healer.
Right.
And also struggled with the image problem of telling people that I was using tuning forks for healing, and people tended to be really like dismissive. Like, it set off what I call woo bells. People like your tuning forks and energy healing, and they'd be like, "Oh, you're one of those woo people." I'm really not. You know, I'm really actually very practical and sensible and grounded, and you know, I eat meat. So, you know, that was a big reason why I didn't want to do it. But then my practice changed kind of suddenly when I stopped just working on and directly over the body and started exploring and working in the field around the body. And when I started exploring the field around the body, and basically, you know, what I'm doing is using sound like sonar. So a tuning fork is just an acoustic frequency generator. It's a tone generator. And when you activate it, it produces this tone, an acoustic tone that bounces off the body and comes back. It's like sonar, you know, you ping and listen to the ping back. And for many years, I was doing this when I was living up in the mountains of Vermont. We were living in the middle of a lot of woods, no neighbors, very, very quiet. And so I was able to listen really deeply to this ping back. And what I discovered was that the body has this whole vibrational language that actually gets kind of revealed. It's almost like the tuning fork's like an invisible ink decoder. And it kind of reveals the subtle acoustic emanations of the body in this very intriguing way. And so what I discovered was that this field that surrounds the body, that I now call the biofield, is actually kind of like our own personal storage cloud of everything that's ever happened to us. Like, it's what we call mind and what we call memory. And I actually mapped it. I ended up, you know, sort of having this pattern recognition process go on and discovering that the same kind of vibrational patterning that I was hearing and sensing that would sound a particular way. Like, the first zone that I mapped, that I understood, was the left side of the heart. And that every time we feel sad, we generate a waveform of sadness, and that gets stored there. So it's not just in our brain. You know, your brain's fat. Like, we know that standing waves hold information. You know, that it's a much more logical thing. So our body is electric, and we have this electromagnetic field, and it has these standing waves in it that hold all of our memories, and they're all vibrationally encoded. And for whatever reason, I have this sort of strange ability to decode it. And I have mapped the entire field in what I call the biofield anatomy map, and developed this process for working within that field. Basically, what we're doing as biofield tuning practitioners, we're kind of like technicians in that we're sort of scanning the territory for noise in the signal or a sense of resistance. Because in your electrical system where you've like repressed emotions or had traumatic inputs, there's a kind of resistance in the body, tension that stops flow, and then that's also in the field. And so we find these areas of tension and noise and hang out in them and give the body that biofeedback. And like, hey, listen, you sound pretty noisy there. And the body goes, yeah, I do. And the body will like spontaneously like auto-tune. And in doing so, in relaxing the tension, the tangle of information, just relaxing that, the energy that's been frozen there in resistance lets go. And there's a breath part here too, because any of these inputs and resistances are holding our breath. And so basically what we do is we just find areas of tension in the field and body where there's no breath, where there's no flow, and help them to release and relax, and for that energy that's been frozen to come back into circulation, that energy that's been dissonant to come back into harmony. And it's so simple and easy, and the body just does the work, and it works on all kinds of levels. So
I love the simplicity of it, Eileen. When I was watching your diagram of, the kind of, I guess you call it the biofield, or some people call it the auric field, or whatever. There's different names that people call it. Is that correct, or is it different, the auric field?
Yeah, no, I think it's the same thing. I mean, the aura, what we call the aura, the human energy field, the biomagnetic field, the biofield, it's all referring to me, what is just our electric being, our electric nature. Nobody's really calling it that. We call it energy and this and that, but it's really electric. Like your heart, if your heart stops, and you're in a medical environment, they're going to apply electricity to jumpstart it. Like the same electricity that's in the wall, that's in that thing that they use to jumpstart your heart, and that's in your body. Like it's all the same electricity. And I think people just don't get that.
Yeah. So I wanted to refer to that little diagram, which if you guys go and watch Eileen's video, and within the first 5 or 10 minutes, she's going to show you this diagram of kind of the energy of, and you mentioned that the energy of birth is like on the outside of the perimeter, right? And then as you get closer to the body, it's closer to your own age. So midway in between, like you talk about, like you come across this like tangled resistance of energy, like at whatever age. And presumably, can you tell the age when you're doing it as well?
Yeah, we can. And that's the thing that's so cool about this model, is that you can know nothing about the person on the table and start combing in. It's like dropping a needle on an album and kind of reading the record of their life.
Cool.
And so the very outer edge is sort of gestation and birth. And so if somebody had a traumatic birth, the energy out there is chaotic, and it's also stuck. It's holding a lot of resistance. It's a lot of freeze in our system since birth can be held there. And so, what's cool about the sound is that it reflects that. It shows us that is stuck, and it helps it to really release and let go. And some core tension that you've been holding since birth can actually release out of your system. So what's neat about being able to access this timeline is that we can get into that precognitive stuff, that, conception to age 3, which is all sort of pre-verbal, precognitive memory. We can go into those memories. We literally find exactly where a memory is, a very specific memory, and change the way it is structured electromagnetically and vibrationally, and relax it. So it's very, it works on this very deep level. And so as you come in through the field, you hit these turbulent zones. It's like when you're in a plane and you're going through turbulence. Yes. You feel that in the fork. You're like, whoa, it's really turbulent here. And it might go really atonal. Like if somebody was in a car accident and they had like that shot of adrenaline that happens, we call that alarm. And you can actually hear the tone will go really sharp, and you can really hear it. It's there's like 4 tones that are pretty easily identifiable that even early students learn to understand, and those are fear and alarm, like pain, which also kind of has a sharp quality.
Yeah.
Depression, you can hear. Depression sits off the left shoulder like a low pressure system, and it will make the tuning fork an undertone in the tuning fork gets accented. It's kind of like this boom. And you think about when you're depressed, how you're like tonally like blah.
Yeah. It's the sound of a gray cloud.
Yeah, or Eeyore, right? Gray. Yeah. And so that's like a tonal expression that it's like a heavy low pressure center that's sitting there. And we can change that. We can come in, find it, reflect it back to the body, like, hey, listen to that. That's all wrong. And the body goes, yeah, we're going to lift that up. And so just by giving this call and response, because the tuning fork is going blah, and the body's going blah. But after a little while, the body starts calling back blah, and then people feel that way.
Nice. That's pretty, that's it's communication going on, which is like reassuring, validating, like, okay, I'm on the right path. Now, do you need to bring into consciousness what that issue is, whatever it may be, or just like, do you talk it through with the patient, or you just like, oh, here's this, we don't need to identify it, or how do you work with that?
Well, the answer to that question is both.
Okay.
So it depends on the context. It depends on the client and the receiver. Like I in order for me to map the field, I kind of needed to know details about stories and things like that. I love stories and I love people. And so for me, it was really awesome. Like, what happened at 12? I'm like hitting this area. It's really stuck, you know? And I'll be like, wow, this is, you know, in the sadness zone. And they're like, oh yeah, my grandmother died at 12, you know, and we never talked about it. And I still get really sad when I think about it. Right? It's all kind of stuck up and sad there, you know? And so we go and we hang out with it. And as a practitioner, it's just my job to witness it. Like, I'm not a shrink or anything like that. I'm just, you know, letting people share their stories and witnessing them with them. I don't have to do anything because they're doing the work, you know, they're bringing up that buried hurt and resonating with it. And then we integrate it, you know, that energy that's been stuck and frozen, we bring it back into the central channel, the circulation of the toroidal field, you know, out of freeze and back into flow in the whole system. So, you know, I work kind of curious about stories, but it isn't necessary. Some people don't want to talk about their stories, and some practitioners don't want to listen to them. And if that's the case, then it's just very somatic. You know, when we hit an area of turbulence, we say to the person, the receiver, what are you noticing? You know, and it's like, I'm poking the memory of that difficult time. So sometimes people's hearts start racing or they can't breathe and they go into the actual physical response that memory is holding. And through this witnessing, this bringing to the surface and then harmonizing, that deep discord simply gets released from the system. So it just frees up energy for people. You know, that's the thing that's so awesome about it is it's kind of about healing trauma, but the result of that is that it liberates potential and it increases overall energy. It raises people's voltage, as I say, like just the amount of electric energy that you're running through you, like how strong are you, you know, when we're really in a state of flow and we're grounded and our electrical body is free of noise and resistance, then our health meter just goes way up. And it's such an easy way, you know, to get healthier.
It's super subtle and non-invasive. I mean, if you watch how it's done, if you've done energy healing before, it's fascinating to me. And you said something in the lecture that really hit home with me, and I'm sure it could hit home with a lot of people, is that, you know, a lot of us do a lot of inner work to no avail. And then you said, there's some stuff that's just you're not aware of or how to access it, that you can access it through this process.
Yeah, I mean, it's because it's this invisible ink decoder, you know, it's just kind of like revealing all these places in our circuitry where we're subconsciously stuck. And some of them are very close to us and we don't even recognize them. You know, we have these blind spots that we've been living with our whole life, or this bad vibe that we're just so accustomed to that maybe we've been living it for generations in our bloodline, you know, because stuff gets passed down. It's what I call energenetics. It's the tone of the song of our DNA. It's the emotional cadence that is in that flow of information.
Yeah.
And, you know, we inherit that and that can be shifted. You know, we can do ancestral healing going, you know, there's these structures in the biofield anatomy that I call the ancestral rivers. And the left side holds mom's DNA lineage and the right is dad's. And when we stick a fork in these rivers, we can hear the song of the DNA and you can hear the noise and you can hear and feel and sense it change. It's like water that was turgid, you know, suddenly settles and becomes clear, and you get to inherit all the beauty and gifts, you know, without all this emotional discord and storm that's in there. So a lot of people's emotional discomfort really is ancestral, like more than they realize.
I don't know if you're aware that the Shift Network just did an ancestral healing type of summit. Were you aware of that, or were you part of it?
I was. I didn't see any of it.
Okay.
But yeah, I know that. So it is timely. I think this ancestral healing thing is really up at the moment. And I've really seen it in my work in the last few years where these ancestral flows have gotten stronger. You know, there's almost a sense of the ancestors showing up when working there. I mean, you know, DNA is an unbroken chain, right? Traveling through time. So in a way, when we're plucking a string on this end, it is resonating, you know, upstream and downstream. Because as we heal this, we heal in our kids. And I've certainly seen that in my own life, my own healing process, you know, just the increased harmony in my whole family.
Nice. So, we don't have a lot of time. I know you need to go, so I want to cover some other territory. But I did want to bring up the point about stuck energy and stuck emotions, how it affects the body. Just make sure everyone, I mean, that is kind of commonly known. So I would presume that releasing that will help release any type of chronic condition that could be coming or whatever, nipping the physical in the bud. And what's your experience on that, the physical part of it?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is really the essence of it. And I'm working on a second book right now, and it's really about emotions. You know, they're kind of the elephant in the room in healthcare that nobody's talking about. And even when we, you know, okay, the CDC says 85% of death is caused by stress, but then they don't go on to define what stress is. And I think that, you know, what stress is to me is the mismanagement of emotions. Yep. Because, you know, I always ask in all my classes, whose parents modeled appropriate emotional management?
How many hands went up?
Oh, you know, how about effective problem solving? So we grow up in this, like, we see drama and soap operas and, you know, stuff and blow and passive, I don't know, just mismanagement of our emotions, because nobody shows us how to manage them properly.
Right. Oh, except for you bury them. That we learned.
Yeah, we bury them, and that's mostly what we do. You know, there's this great book called Emotions Buried Alive Never Die. And that's what we find in the biofield. You know, they're squiggly and hot, and they might have been produced 20 years ago, but because they weren't ever expressed, they've just been kind of held in the system. So they're held in tension and discord and create resistance. And then what they do is they attract what we call kerfluffles in biofield tuning, where my suppressed tangle intersects somebody else's suppressed tangle, and then we're in it, right? And you might consciously not want to do that, but this thing that hasn't been expressed or healed keeps presenting itself in your life. You know,
it's like a magnetic field for other.
It is magnetic entanglement. It absolutely is, and we're drawn to people who have like mirror tangles. You know, like, oh, you're going to bring up my stuff, I'm going to bring up your stuff. I think that's why relationships are really good vehicles for healing if you figure out how to do it in a functional way. Right? With recognizing and understanding, communicating, processing, integrating, moving on. Yeah. But until we're willing to acknowledge and integrate and release those emotions, they're going to keep wreaking havoc, causing self-sabotage, making us ill. I mean, what I've really found, you know, in 23 years of being in the clinic, looking at people's fields, pinging them, I've really understood the precursors to disease. Like, for example, I was working on somebody who had a diagnosis of like hardened artery. I think I don't know medical names, but anyway, his heart was hard. And I came into his field, and what I discovered was that, you know, he and his wife had gotten divorced, and the kids had went with her, and there was this whole hard, bad thing. And so he closed off his heart. And then he hated his ex-wife. And so it was all like hard and full of hate. And his heart was like, you know, hate builds up on our heart like a film, and it stops it from beating properly. And, you know, your heart isn't just a pump. It's like an electric generator for your whole electrical system. You know, it's a spiral electrical motor. And when it isn't, you know, doing its thing because you're not letting life and love through, right? Life force. I mean, it is electricity. It's the flow of life. It's just a very intense current of life. And so what I was able to do was help him to work through the emotions there, the hurt, the hate, you know, and help to bring those into a balanced place, and his heart softened and his relationships healed. And you know, and his health condition reversed. But we had to deal with the emotions that were there. I mean, we have all men and women, you know, having heart attacks. Heart disease is the #1 killer. And it's always just like, oh, it's diet, you know, it's saturated fat, it's smoking, it's stress. But we're not talking about the emotions of like grief and hate and despair that can affect how the heart is functioning. We've got to heal those. We've got to talk about those emotions. And we've got to really help to integrate and allow, because a lot of people, like on the spiritual path, will use meditation or yoga or whatever as like a bypass, right? That, well, I'm only going to look at what's good in light, and I'm going to go out my garden and say there are no weeds. But there are weeds, you know, and we got to look at the weeds. We got to pull them up. And those are these difficult emotions: shame, rage, you know, hate, self-righteousness, So many people I see who say that they, want peace and love, have this kind of self-conscious range, especially politically, this, and self-righteousness is a stealth enemy of peace, right? I mean, ultimately, we want to get to a place where we're really, truly, genuinely compassionate for all beings. That is the healthiest vibration to run. So, so what this work has done for me and what I see it's done for the people around them has helped to make them more relaxed, more resilient, more able to get to that compassion, more able to stay in kindness, which is what I think we all want to do. We don't want to be motivated by these subconscious things that make us happy and then we hate ourselves for it. Right?
Yeah.
This is a way to really work through that stuff and get down to your genuine core, your vibrational sweet spot, which really is joy and spontaneity and playfulness. And, you become more like puppies, kids. And,
yes.
and that's health, that's vitality running through your system.
Right. So Eileen, just as an example, this heart patient you're talking about, like how many sessions just out of practicality do you typically need to kind of work through, moderate, light stuff, moderate stuff, deep stuff, or is it all the same?
Well, we always say everybody's different.
Yes.
And everybody's body's different. People's age definitely affects the amount of sessions that are effective. So, I found in this practice, even one session can be life-changing for people because it can just get you unstuck from a certain tether that you've been stuck in, and all of a sudden you're off and running. It can be very life-changing. We usually recommend people do them in sets of 3.
Okay.
What I observed over, many years was 1 was okay, 2 was okay, but 3 was good. It was like a beginning, middle, end. And if somebody had a condition that I could help with, I could usually help within 3 sessions and to make a really noticeable difference. So things that I observed that the practice was really helpful for was pain. I could get people out of pain on the spot, take them down from like an 8 or a 9 down to a 1 or a 0 in like 20 minutes. I mean,
that's huge.
Needs to get into emergency rooms, honestly, because it's very, very effective. People are in pain. People end up in an ER. They're in this really like tense state, and you just find where that is in the field, and you interact with it, and you get them to breathe and to ground and to settle down, and it just takes people right down. They don't need drugs. They don't need opioids, right? So we're working on that. There's just so many ways that this work can help, and in so many different populations. Like we see it helpful for autism, even for things like Parkinson's or MS. We don't treat cancer. We don't treat pregnant women. It's not palliative or end of life care. Sometimes it can be a lot of work for the body to process and integrate and detox, because where we hold tension, the cells aren't clean. And so when we release that tension and everything can flow and start scrubbing that out, you get a detox response in the body. And so if people are very ill or very weak, it can be very uncomfortable and really not helpful. So we look at this more as a wellness practice to, people, and you got mild to moderate anything, we can help. And usually in 3 sessions. But, I've received hundreds, and, it's not like just a 3 and you're done. I mean, what I found is that it's layered so that every session you do builds on the one before it. And you have the experience of getting lighter and lighter as all these heavy tangles release and the energy goes into flow. I'm 50 and I feel healthier, lighter, springier, stronger than I ever have in my life. And I've been through, all kinds of stuff. I had ehrlichiosis, and I had candida, and I had depression. It's not like I'm been like this all along. I went through a lot of health stuff, a lot of digestive misery and adrenal burnout, and that's all been healed. Like, those things are not life sentences. They're not. You can get over Lyme. You can get over these things. You just have to get your battery up. You got to get free of all these tangles, get things into flow, get your battery up, and then your body fixes itself. Chronic fatigue and all of these things that people are suffering from are really just low batteries from too much tangles in the field, too much giving and not enough receiving, too much discharging and not enough recharging. And it just, your battery goes down. And so, what I do in this 7-week thing that I'm doing with the shift, it's going to be a whole process of going through the field, zone by zone, getting out tangles, learning to see life differently. I'm going to teach people to see health through this lens of electricity, what I call electric health. And it's so much easier than, trying to take supplements. And so many people eat clean, right? You were saying earlier, do all these things and you're still like, because you're not thinking about yourself as a battery. And when you start to think of yourself as a battery and think about your electric body and what recharges, it's just, and it can happen quickly too. It doesn't have to be this long drawn out thing.
Geez, so I would imagine this 7-week course would really, people are going to get it.
People are going to get it. I'm really excited to do this course because one, I've never done a video course, and two, having people for 7 weeks to go through all these zones together, it's really going to be a process of getting our battery up, and and I've brought people through this process many times, so I know what happens, and so I'm just really looking forward to doing that with a group through video.
Okay, cool. So you're needed. People like you are needed, and I understand you've trained thousands of practitioners now. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, getting up there,
Okay, good.
Around 1,500, but it just keeps adding, and I'm not staying on top of the numbers.
That's okay. You're getting out there. I went to your, was it on the bio-tuning? What's the bio-tuning website?
Biofieldtuning.com.
Thank you. Biofieldtuning.com is where you have your list of practitioners, so you can find somebody. Okay, cool. And then you also manufactured or created your own tool, your own tuning fork, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just real quick, I'm going to show that. I'll share that picture of that so everyone can see it real quick. Hold on.
You got the sonic slider?
The sonic slider. That's the one you want me to show, right?
Yeah, the sonic slider. I invented the sonic slider for my own use. And when I discovered that it was useful and it really made a difference, I started sharing it with people, and we've sold thousands of them now. It's a great frequency. So I've worked with a lot of frequencies. I've had a lot of prototypes made over the years. Yeah. And this is one that, I had a very specific desire for it to be rejuvenating and relaxing. And so I played with some numbers, and I got a whole bunch of prototypes made. And I knew the moment I put this one on my body that it was exactly what I was looking for. So you activate this fork, and then you slide the handle on just everywhere, all over your whole body, your face, your neck, your waist, your legs. Cool. And when I started using it, I started only using it on my face to start. But when I started using it on my body, I actually dropped like 15 pounds in 5 weeks. Wow. It squeezed out all excess water weight. And because that's really all I had. I have eaten when I'm, when I'm hungry, stop when I'm full, don't sugar much. I had no emotional or inappropriate eating habits. But what I did have was a lot of tension in my fascia from growing up in an environment where I was kind of always tense. And so I had all this sort of deep fascia tension that was inhibiting proper fluid and lymph flow in my system. And so when I used this fork with firm pressure over my whole body, it released the fascia knots. And I came out all out in bruises in the beginning. And I just shrunk and shrunk and shrunk. And I've stayed the same size, ever since I did that, a year and a half ago. Not everybody has that response, but a lot of people lose weight, drop sizes, their muscles firm, their skin firms. They're taking time for their own self-care and using affirmations. I use the affirmation, I have the healthy body of a teenager. And after only doing it for a little while, I started running into friends, and they were saying, "You look like a teenager." And I was like, my affirmation is working.
I have another similar one too, Eileen, for naysayers out there. I've always had this affirmation of that I am 33 years old, the energy of a 33-year-old. I should go for the teenager thing. In any event, I worked with this woman who could read the energy of my hand, and she didn't know about this. She goes, "You got the energy of a 33-year-old." So it's kind of funny. And I do want to share, I was reading some testimonials for this practitioner that I know, and the testimonials of one of his clients, which was 5-star review, said he lost 15 pounds in 2 weeks, or some, significant amount in a short period of time.
Yeah, and some people do.
That's awesome, because we don't want to claim that that's true for all, but it's understandable when you realize there's stuff that triggers the eating that's constantly I had this great vision of, the Energizer Bunny. We're all the Energizer Bunny, but the darn bunny keeps going into a wall, and then it spins, and then it turns around, and then it tries to come back, and then hits the wall, and it's kind of what's going on.
People get stuck.
They get stuck. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
And this work, I think, the number one thing I say is it helps get you unstuck. Whether you're just using a tuning fork on yourself, because if you're stuck not taking care of yourself and not practicing any kind of self-care or self-love, just doing this 5 minutes twice a day while affirming that you love your healthy body. I mean, you're mostly water. Just love the water in you.
Yeah. That's the Emoto water test.
Yeah, exactly. Right? People's moods brighten, their energy level goes up. They start having the energy to do, your life changes. You can change your life in 10 minutes a day rubbing a tuning fork on you. And I have hundreds of testimonials that attest to that.
I've seen them.
Easier.
That's awesome. So, Eileen, is there any other tuning forks or just that one?
Oh, well, we have a whole set of tuning forks. We sell a home study kit for people with instructional DVDs or videos, 5 forks, and the book, obviously. So you can actually start to learn the basics of biofield tuning at home. It's not to be a practitioner or anything, but you can work with friends and family and pets and plants. That's what people are doing and getting results. Or you can come and become a practitioner. So we have people, all kinds of people, everything from doctors, nurses, chiropractors, Reiki practitioners, sound bowl healers, psychotherapists. I mean, we have a very broad range of people who come to this work. A lot of retired engineers, a lot of older men who are retired engineers, which I find so fascinating, but they get the physics of it,
Right.
To them, it's logical, and it really is very logical, right?
Yeah.
So those minds kind of come around to it. So you can become a practitioner. It's a really rewarding practice, I have to say, and you can integrate it into whatever you're already doing. So if you're already a professional practitioner,
Definitely.
you can use this. It integrates beautifully into what you're already doing. So It's really versatile.
Now, experientially too, I've found it's very kind of soothing.
Yeah.
Like massage, or can be like a massage. Is that true? Or
well, yes, it can be very deeply relaxing. People can be very exhausted afterwards and sleep better than they ever have. Get knocked out and sleep for a long time. People can become very energized. They can go home and suddenly that clutter that's been weighing on you that you just haven't had the gumption to deal with. Suddenly the clutter in your field's been cleaned up. That energy's been put in circulation, and now you're like, ding, I'm going to clean out that closet in this drawer and get rid of this stuff. And there can be this real cleaning thing that happens. And that's what I found, is that the more ordered my field has become, the easier it is to maintain order in my environment. I really don't have any pockets of clutter anymore. It's all been busted and it all stays orderly now, which was really hard for me. I was very entropic, very slovenly, and had a lot of stuff stuck in my field. And so it's been a wonderful experience to effortlessly maintain order around me, because I have energy for it. Yeah. And I see that happen with other people too. It's not just me. So.
Right. Eileen, this is exceptional what you're doing. I love what you're doing. I do want to share the Shift Network event that's starting tonight. Are you doing that live tonight, or?
No, that's pre-recorded, but It's being broadcast tonight, Wednesday, May 8th, but it's also being broadcast Saturday, May 11th at 11 a.m. Pacific.
Cool. I'll share that with in our blog and our posts and stuff, so everyone knows that. But if you miss any of those live events, you can register for the recording, which is great. And then, do you know when the class starts officially, Eileen?
I don't.
Well, it's probably a week or two after your last live one, is my guess. So maybe May, early June.
The 15th, I think the 15th is a live Q&A. And then I think it starts the week after that.
Okay. I think I have it right here. I can tell you. I write these things down. Looks like, let's see, Eileen. It looks like you have through May 21st to get in on that class. That's what I have in my record here. So let me just read the name of the event is The Balancing Effects of Sound Healing and Sound Therapy with Eileen McKusick. Experience a whole body tuning to resolve pain, anxiety, sleep, and digestive issues with sound healing and sound therapy. So is there actually going to be sound on this event? Are you doing some making some?
In the The last 15 or 20 minutes or so, I do, they call it a whole body tuning, but it's about 20 minutes, but it's about really becoming aware of the central channel of our inner toroid and running the energy. We have a current that comes up under our feet. The negative electric charge from the surface of the earth is the ascending current. The positive current from the sun is the descending current, and they spiral around each other as they move through us, and that's the current of electricity through our bodies. And it's also part, the central part of the toroid. It's not just about the central channel, because the same energy that moves through the central channel also goes on the outer boundary of our toroid. And so the stronger our core and outer boundary, the more resilient we are, and the better we can withstand, like, the electromagnetic environment, for example. Like, people who have very low batteries really struggle in this electromagnetic soup that we're in, because all of these energies just become too much. And when you get the tangles out, get things circulating through the core and the outer boundary, and the battery goes up, you're much better protected. You're much more resilient. Like, I've been in 5G and I feel it, because I'm just so, my outer boundary is in good integrity and strength.
Yeah.
And that's such a key part of this practice. So I introduced people to that idea of this really simple meditation of just sort of lighting up the core and visualizing that outer boundary. And that awareness of your own inner light and this core of light through you grows and grows the more you do this work, so that you start to reference yourself in that way.
I had to unmute myself. We got a phone conversation going on. So Eileen, this leads to this last question. And you mentioned that this work can be done remotely.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm doing. I'll show you over the video. And not only is it done remotely, but the call's pre-recorded. So it's actually like done through the ether, and the ether is outside time and space. And the ether is part of a core part of my cosmology and story. The ether is not part of our current cosmology. The ether, the luminiferous ocean of light that electromagnetic waves travel through, was taken out of our cosmological story because of Einstein. And even Einstein recanted on that and said space without an ether is unthinkable. But by that point, this idea of the vacuum of empty nothingness had come into being. And most people live in a cosmological framework where space is just nothing, and that light waves travel through nothing. And this connective medium, the Higgs field is even described as this. It's like a field that is present everywhere. And it's this sort of ground state that is holographic. And so, I am able to, and we are essentially infinite beings. Like, if my mind is out here, and I can access me through here, then where do I end? Right? I don't. I'm infinite. I'm everywhere. I'm just a point of focus in an infinite sea, but I am everywhere. And so from a distance perspective, since you are everywhere, and we are all connected in all the light we cannot see, the one light, then I can pluck the file that is you out of the ether. I can pull up your hologram and I can work on it. It's almost like working on a Google Drive doc with somebody. It's like you're there and I'm here, but we're editing together, right? You ever done that? So it's the same thing. It's like there is this sort of universal world, web of connectivity that we can access each other through intention. And it works. And I didn't think it was possible. People asked me for years if I could do it at a distance. And I was like, no, like, that's dumb. Like, this is sound waves on the body. Like, of course I don't do it at a distance. And then somebody really twisted my arm and I tried it, and I was amazed to discover that all the same patterns that I found around an actual body that I could work with appeared when there was no body on the table. And I found it not even believing I was going to, right? Because I was invested in this belief that it wasn't possible. So it's not like I went looking to try to prove this or anything. I went looking to try to disprove it. And so I was able to read and adjust the field. And we weren't even connected by phone or anything. We got on the phone afterwards. And I was like, this age, your mother's this personality, like, you had a head injury or 5, all these things that I'm able to do in person, tell a person a whole life story. I could. And he was like, yeah, and I feel pretty different now than I did when you started. And he even did like a biomarker test. So it's possible to do it at a distance, and it's possible to do it with groups. And I'll tell you what, group distance sound healing is nothing I would ever sign up for, because it sounds completely ridiculous. But it works, you know, and I've been doing this for years, just audio only. And people listen to these things and they're like, oh my God, I feel so different. I feel so much better. So the video course that I'm doing with the shift is the first time that I've actually ever done adjustments where people could see me, because I do get a little weird and I dance around and I squiggle and I shake out my own body. I'm like, am I going to do that on video? I don't know. So yeah, so it's possible. It works. I know it's implausible.
Thank you for that share. I've experienced the same thing doing some chakra healing remotely with my sister. Like, I pretended she was lying on the bed, talking on the phone. I could feel her whole body as if it were lying on the bed. It was amazing. So.
I know, it is amazing.
Well, Eileen, I'm going to let you go. I thank you so much for joining us today. What you have to offer is huge and pioneering, and I can't wait to get a whole bank of treatments, because I need it. Especially when the energizing bunny in me keeps hitting the wall. I'm like, okay, something's got to change here. So I love this solution. And best of luck with your first Shift Network class. And I will have a link here, you guys that are listening in. You can go register for the recording of the class. And I have links to Eileen's tuning fork, so you can purchase it. And if you get it before Mother's Day, I see there's a sale going on.
Sale until Saturday. Yeah, get
that's
that
a
out.
Great Mother's Day gift. All right,
it's a great Mother's Day gift. It's
oh my gosh, well, I'll get it out today. So thank you, everyone. And tune in again for our next High Vibe Tribe interview. I think coming up, we've got Sandra Ingerman is coming, who's another Shift Network on shamanic journeying and connecting with nature. I don't know if you know Sandra, Eileen, but
you know Sandra, yeah, love her work.
Oh, do you? Oh, good, nice. So we're going to have a conversation next week, I think.
Nice.
All right, thanks, Eileen.
All right, thank you. Take care.